the connection between Judeo-Christianity and secular humanism, minus the God element. Number one, the idea of immaculate conception. The secular humanist still holds on to the idea of something from nothing. This is why, in his warped mind, humanity lacks a nature, since nature implies a continuum of inherited traits. Man is born void of any predispositions, and it is man himself who conjures up greed and sex and selfishness and sexual roles, now called gender roles, out of thin air. It's not that these traits pre-existed, were products of natural selection, and are then inhibited or promoted within cultural and social contexts, but they are non-existent. Man pulls them out of his arse like a magic trick. So, gender is a total human invention. Heterosexuality as well. Sex in general. People learn to be heterosexual, according to this viewpoint. It's not that people learn that social limitations of their the social limitations of their sexual role, or acquire the cultural symbols to express them, but heterosexuality is a human invention. Number two, the idea that man, and as a result nature, is evil. It is man who brings violence and greed and rape and discrimination into the world. He is bad and must make amends for it. This imposition of shame and guilt upon man for being man is directly linked to Judeo-Christian servility. Number three, the idea of paradise morphing into utopia. This idea shows a disdain for the world, wanting to heal it or escape from it into a better reality. In the religious version, paradise exists somewhere beyond, and one must die to get there. When it morphs into the secular version, this utopia exists somewhere in the future, in the imminent coming future. In both versions, the ideal world is characterized by the absence of suffering, of strife, the 7 deadly sins, but retains consciousness and vigor. Number four, the idea of a universal equality. All are equal under God if the individual offers the proper respect and accepts God into his heart. And in the secular form, all are equal under the law if the individual shows the proper respect for the state or the institution. Of course, in the Jewish faith, there is no such uniformity, because they are the chosen people. But this was later corrected with Christianity, which opened the gates of paradise for all to be included, no matter their sex, their race, their creed, their heritage. Their commonality was their unified submission to the common authority. In both cases, the only form of distinction was in reference to servitude and loyalty to the authority, to the idea or ideal. This is how genes became irrelevant and memes began taking over. In the religion, it was the pious man that was more holy than the average man. And in the system, it is the good citizen who distinguishes himself from the average man. In both cases, salvation is possible if the individual makes the proper amends, submits to the one authority, works for its betterment and expansion, does the Lord's good work, and remains docile and tolerant and submissive towards it for a lifetime. Number five, the idea that all deserve love and respect just for being born. In the religious dogma, love is a universal quality which all deserve and only do not get if they push it away themselves. In the secular form, it is all who have rights and deserve respect and consideration, and also love. Love becomes a prostitute and is denied to a man only if he does not display the proper thankfulness and humility. In both cases, it is never applied, but remains theoretical. The individual's purporting to be Christian or humanitarian, still exhibit the natural discrimination instincts. They are blind to appearances, yet always choose the most attractive. They think all deserve love, and that love and sex are wonderful, with no domination symbolism and no aggression involved, but they never screw a bum. And when they are given love and sex by force, they refer to it as rape, feeling violated and hurt afterwards. Number 6, the idea that man deserves and can attain immortality. In both the religious and the secular form, this immortality is attainable via another will, or an otherness, or an abstraction. In the religion, this otherness is God. In the secular ideology, this abstraction is the state, or the nation, or the idea of man, the ideal man. Number 7, the idea that nature is bad, and the idealized, cleansed, the Platonic idea of nature being worshipped as good. In the religion, nature is ruined by man's curiosity. He is cast out of pure nature, and he ruins it for himself. In the secular form, man ruins nature with his meddling, with his curiosity, with his techniques and technologies. In both cases, man can return to this authentic past by making the proper amends and offering the proper sacrifices. Then man can go back to living in a world with no violence, no hunger, no greed, no selfishness, no gender, no ego. Number 8, the idea that ego and pride are evil. In this case, the self, the ego, and anything associated with it, and its self-sufficiency is slandered so as to make it possible for the many to be as one. The many selves united into one self, God in other words, within which the many selves lose all relevance, are expendable, and they can't be distinguished as individuals. Number 9, the idea that the world, reality, is fake, an illusion, borrowed from the East, this idea is, and an intermediate stage, a testing ground before the more real reality, or the better, the more perfect world is finally reached. Secular humanism has become a fetish for the modern nihilist. I do not use the term fetish here as they do, a defensive, preemptive, accusatory label meant to degrade without reasoning, but only emoting, but I use it in its original form and clearly. My intent is to unclothe this term from all its modernistic, pseudo-intellectual garments and expose it to the light of day to find the aletheia in it. The term humanity or humanism refers to the word human, which in turn refers to a sexual species type. A species type is a sexually produced and defined type. Any other definition given must be justified and be clear of all mystical, magical insinuations. No sex, no human. To explore what this means to be human is to explore the sexuality of the species produced by these sexual practices. The term male-female are not arbitrary concepts, but terms referring to subcategories of the category human, which clarify what the original category means. Erase the subcategories and you degrade the category. You cloud it and mystery unless you offer a different definition of the term. If you offer a different definition of the term human, you must justify it, keep it free from allusions to what is imperceptible, and more importantly, you must explain how this is not an artificial definition, given that the definition of human as a sexual species type is rooted in nature and evolution and the essentially perceptible. Now for the common modern nihilist, any sexual allusion is used to degrade and dismiss an opinion, or it offers a veiled warning regarding sexual promise and sexual potential. remain true or remain outside the collective, be excluded from the genetic pool. This is a sexual threat, a feminine sexual threat. In this case, we return to the term fetish. We return it to its original dictionary meaning. And I read from this online dictionary. Fetish, noun. First definition, an object regarded with awe as being the embodiment of habitation of a potent spirit, or as having magical potency. Number two, second definition, any object, idea, etc., eliciting unquestioning reverence, respect, or devotion, to make a fetish of high grades. Number three, psychology, any object or non-genital part of the body that causes a habitual erotic response or fixation. End quote. The fixation of modern variants of Judeo-Christian nihilism with the concept, the idea, the possibility of humanity is not only obvious, but you can only open the television to hear it being used repeatedly as an all-encompassing salve, a prayer promising all sorts of magical solutions and escapes. The binding element being used is not reason, but an emotion, love. Love is what explains and justifies without having to explain and justify. One simply feels it. Through an act of verbal conceptual alchemy, the term is purified by eliminating all biological, natural, primal, earthly qualities. Sex, in other words, is filtered out of the remaining, now divine concoction, and what is left is a magical potion which can offer any mind what it needs. Humanity, the plural form of human, is reified, reduced down to its most uniform, unifying, purified form, its divine form. All that was real in it is vaporized, leaving behind the ethereal essence of a magical power. Devotion to it is the way the sexual element is taken out of the idea and placed on the worshipper. God, the Christian version, is this purified form of human. Human is the secularization of this Judeo-Christian God. A secularization, a purifying, leaving behind only the divine, including now the word human. When we say humane, as in treat him humanely, what we mean is in adherence to a Judeo-Christian moral standard. Sexless, raceless, with no past, no blood, no nature, the word human becomes mystical. The worshippers are now totally associated with the term, whereas God in the Christian sense was to be submitted to, hoping to sit beside him. The devout worshipper of divine is now included in the thing worshipped. Selfishness and egotism now lowered down to a more direct association. One is worthy simply by being born, and can only lose this worthiness by not accepting the term with all its divine, purified, mystical connotations. The term and conditions of remaining included are always in accordance with the nihilistic dogma. The Christian had to prove himself before he acquired the salvation offered by the presumed divine. He had to accept Jesus in his heart. The modern version, the secular humanist, is already included. No baptism necessary, making it even easier than before by eliminating the need for self-control and self-sacrifice, which was part of the Christian devotion. One can only face being excluded from the divine, excommunicated. Baptismal rites have now become education. A child had to receive the appropriate rites from the popularly sanctioned priests representing the divine. In these more advanced days, the rites are called education, properly given by the sanctioned, properly approved priest of secular human baptismal ceremonies. The school has now become the church. Not only what is taught, but how it is taught must be accepted and recited. by the inductee after years of proper training. At the end of the process, what he recites has become second nature, literally. It is a substitute for nature. The official narrative is the pure, authentic, reliable, holy word, and the teachers, the secular humanist version of the priesthood, are the conduits of Holy Scripture, even if they themselves fail to be entirely holy and pure themselves. This is what I mean by we live in an age where the people are by the book, people of the word, the code, in other words. The fact that the term human has now become a word void of most natural elements, because first came the word, as in the Bible, to be excluded, excommunicated from the divine also takes a few words of exorcism. Nazi, fascist, hater, sexist, racist, ill, sociopath, etc. All these words are the secular humanist exorcism rites. The mystical experience with the divine can as easily become an exorcism when all that is required to erase a concept founded on words, and nothing more than words, are more words. The worshipper of the term humanity finds in the incomprehensibility and complexity of the term the holiness of the divine himself, in himself. He is the complex and incomprehensible being worshipped with narcissistic obsessiveness in the reflection via others. He worships himself through it, this now abstracted God, dead but still not gone. He admires, marvels, and loves himself and this purified, projected otherness. God becomes a representation of his ego. He can now be selfless and still selfish, egoless and still egotistical, and not feel ashamed of the baseness, the primal factor. He can be shameless in his shame and feel civilized in his primitiveness. The sexual element in the original human has now become a defensive, slandering, accusatory word, a word used against all those who threaten to discover and uncover the ruse. It is the other who is primitive and obsessed with sex when he tries to uncover the primitive and sexual and the ones claiming to be worshippers of the pure, the virginal, the platonic, and the divine, and the supernatural. It is the one who threatens to uncover the hate beneath the proclamations of love, who is the hater. It is the one who threatens to uncover the illness, the sexual redirection, the dysfunction, the duplicity, who must be disarmed by accusing him first of the very things he is threatening to disclose. The worshipper of the purified form of self is now quick to assault the other with what he feels he may be exposed as, particularly exposed to himself. The other is the unholy, the satanic, and the secular humanist's conception of evil. An evil which now is given a scientific note by calling it ill or some other psychological title. Sex is now turned into an illness and morphs into a fetish with the concept, the word, human. It is not the reality of humanity which is obsessed over, but its idealized, abstracted form. The secular humanist does not love humanity per se, no more than he loves himself, but he loves the cleanse of all reality projection of humanity, the idea of humanity he wishes were true, or which will come true in some distant, technologically advanced, imminent utopian future. The rejection of the sexual element in human and the term human now turns into an accusation, a sin, to defend oneself from the overcome evilness, and a fetish, a secret longing, an inner sexual need being denied expression. The sexual humanist becomes obsessed with the idea of humanity. Eros directs itself to the pure, virginal, idealistic part, while the animal, earthly, natural part is relieved with this obsession with the abstract. Humanity, now sexless, can only be loved platonically. The repression results in sexual dysfunction, in redirection, exaggerated libidinal energies, in an inner psychic schism, in a constant repetitive disillusionment, dissatisfaction with the real. Admitting that Christians are all sinners maintains God as the divinely good, the projection of the divinely good. Admitting, because science cannot be easily denied by the secular humanist, not as easily as the Christian can, that there is no good or bad in general, when referring to humans, it maintains the ideal of humanity as the divinely good. It is the individual human who fails to be humanist. Humanity retains its purity by being an abstraction, an idea that humans must live up to. The idea having been stripped of its natural genetic grounding, its sexual definition being denied through the dismissal of male-female subtypes, and its relation to its own historical mimetic grounding in Judeo-Christianity, acquires the characteristics of the sublime. Emotion, not reason, becomes its identifier. Love, as the all-encompassing, all-bonding unifier, God is love, for the Christian after all, and hate as the evil, hated antagonist that blemishes this love, either by confronting it or by forcing the worshippers of love to hate in return. Because the rational, the perceptible, has already been denounced as base, primal, what is to be overcome so as to achieve the state of communal bliss? All that remains is the emotional, requiring no more than a community of fear, finding refuge in hope and in each other, finding refuge in words evoking sensations, emotions. With Christians, God is incomprehensible, indivisible, immutable. With secular humanists, humanity, as the unifying idea, is also incomprehensible, in that man cannot be defined, cannot be understood. He is too complex, beyond reasoning. It is indivisible because any attempt to subcategorize by using race, sex, appearance is evilness, trying to fracture the divinely uniform and unifying the oneness. It is immutable because although its parts are constantly changing, the concept itself remains fixed as an unifying, transcending, universal whole. Ergo, change is superficial, divergence shallow, and all remains one within the imperceptible abstraction of the idea. Modern humanism, secular humanism, is modernized nihilism. Denies the mysteriousness of nature and proposes the mysteriously antithetical to the parts of nature which are not incomprehensible, imperceptible, mysterious. It selectively mystifies. It wishes to mystify what is the least mysterious and to demystify what is the most mysterious. This is its expression of nihilistic reversals. The forever changing, lacking thingness, the static, the absolute, is turned into the mundane absolute, the one, the thing. And in turn, the mundane, the human, the organic, the apparent, is turned into the divinely mysterious, mystical. We find similar examples of Judeo-Christian nihilism in other aspects of secular humanism, such as the human becomes particular, whereas the more particularizing, less generalizing, simplifying subcategories of racial, sexual subtypes are deemed to be generalizing and oversimplifying. The concept of humanity, or human, like all nihilistic concept, must be cleansed of all natural earthly associations. The real is what is being annulled. The idea, the ideal, must be purified, turning into the anti-natural, the unnatural. The sexual definition used to designate the species category Homo sapien is dismissed as being too superficial to define such a complex entity. In its place, something anti-real, unreal, something alluding to complexity without actually proving it must be used. As with Christianity, a baptismal rite, a ritual cleansing of the organism of all of its naturalness, is used to purify it and return it to its authentic, quote-unquote, essence. The real is now the false. In the new definition, the implied and presumed is the authentic, the more real reality. The superficiality of the category human is not considered, but the apparent superficiality of all subcategories is central in dismissing their relevance. The desired goal remains unblemished, unquestioned, but its parts are full of indiscretions. The Christian is a sinner. Christianity is holy. The communist is in error. Communism is perfect. The ideal is absolute, the real forever failing to live up to its calling. The secular humanist is quick to speculate about an idea's psychological backdrop when it confronts his preferred ideal. He never questions his own ideas, emotional foundations, when in this case they are the only thing supporting it. An emotion is quickly used as an assaulting accusation, meant to dismiss without responding using reasoning. But its own selfless, compassionate, loving being, the only leg the notion of humanism stands on, is never analyzed. By theoretically detaching the emotion from the self, the ego, the secular humanist, like the Christian, mystifies it, placing it in the beyond, the transcendental, and also he absolves himself of the need to justify this emotion in him. He is a follower of the pure, the sacred, and he, as a person, is not the one projecting it. The Christian stands behind God and simply defends him. This is a very feminine tactic, this standing behind an authority and saving oneself from the risks and the costs of having to defend and to justify and to explain and to face the consequences. The Judeo-Christian feminine mind is saved from integrity. She or he simply follows, submits, and belongs to what is taken for granted. The popular, the majority, the status quo is proof enough. He can now show contempt, be patronizing from a hypothetical position of superiority, while claiming humility because he is regurgitating, parroting, and in line with what was given to him. He can be cynical towards everything because his place within the truth, the sacred, is already established as fact. He feels secure in his commitment to the popular. The defensive tactics are also provided to him. For a feminized nihilistic mind, using the same words of shaming are sufficient. He then sits behind amongst all those who sit behind, mocking those who challenge the ideal. They are totally submissive towards. Quantities can laugh at qualities. The shared comfort of immersing themselves within what can protect them from themselves, being exposed and having to stand up for self, is too powerful for any quality to reason with. The jaded self-indulgence of the simple is based on the certainty that they remain safe within quantities. The apparent is only profound and convincing when it supports the already established final conclusion. This is top-down thinking, deductive reasoning where the starting premise is never inductively constructed but automatically presumed and accepted, though it contradicts everything which is experienced. When the apparent conflicts with the desired, already established, starting proposition, it is labeled superficial or considered not enough to explain the complexities of the subject at hand. The presumed complexities do not factor into the final conclusion when the emotional appeal is positive. They do, on the other hand, factor in when the emotions produced are negative or negating the positive. Here the negative is turned into everything which contradicts, nullifies the positive of human need. And the positive is all that contradicts, nullifies all that stands in the way of human fulfillment of need.